Felix, start off by talking about Micron. I mean, is it seen as a potential AI play, or is it really outside? It doesn't have that golden aura?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think, right now, I think they had a high bar last night, and one thing to keep in mind on Micron, it's outperformed the semis, NASDAQ, and NVIDIA by about 30% this year. So some profit taking is definitely not unexpected. As it remains, is it an AI play? I think a lot of investors are focused on HBM. And HBM, as you mentioned earlier, with data center revenues tripling, it's up 50% quarter over quarter to about 1.1 billion in the past quarter. That's been a big driver of the AI thesis. But actually, we were short Micron for about 5 months, and then we actually pivoted long more recently just because we were more optimistic on the non-AI portion of Micron's business, which doesn't get talked about enough. And Micron's management addressed this a lot last night about the consumer-oriented markets like PCs, smartphones coming back to life. The inventory sort of glut is getting eased and so forth. So I think that is a part of Micron's thesis that should attract more attention than just HBM and AI.
So HBM, high bandwidth memory chips, they use 3D stacking to speed up the system, among other things. So they do have AI applications.
Oh, they do. I mean, HBM is absolutely necessary when you're trying to think about stacking up AI infrastructure, and they're a major part of this AI revolution. They're one of the most expensive components when you think about AI accelerator chips and what's on there. So, I mean, that's why Micron is considered an AI play. That's why SK Hynix and Samsung, pretty much the big 3 memory players, they're all part of this whole AI wave as well. But again, I would stress that HBM still about roughly 25% of their revenues by the end of this year. That means the rest is not HBM, and it doesn't get as much attention. But we, through multiple extensive supply chain checks with our sources, believe that the non-HBM portion may be bottoming. And you saw that with guidance last night. Their fiscal quarter 3 guidance on the revenue side, we were actually anticipating them to beat by about 5 percentage points. They actually came in at 4 percentage points in the midpoint. And I think part of that is, again, due to the consumer-oriented markets recovering. So I hope more investors focus on that part rather than just HBM. We're actually a little bit cautious on the HBM side of the story just because supply could catch up to demand later on if Samsung gets their act together and nudge elbows with Jensen, beginning with HBM3E, but probably begin with HBM4. So there could be different dynamics there. But overall, we believe Micron is a very interesting story that should not be overlooked.
And of course, HBM chips are sensitive, aren't they? America has been trying to cut off China's access to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of what's going on the export control side, and then now with tariffs coming on, I think that's another reason why shares are probably pressured this morning. Tariffs was not in their guidance last night. They made this explicit, and they were going to increase costs onto the consumer, depending on how these, how the rules and implementation of these tariffs go into effect. So that's also something to keep an eye on.
The PC industry hopes that the so-called AI devices or AI-enabled devices will be a big sales driver. And I know if you go into Staples, you've got AI all over the laptops. But has there been a big uptick in PC sales to consumers who are keen on jumping aboard AI?
Not yet. I mean, we were supposed to see somewhat of an upward trend last year, but that never came into fruition. This year, there's more hope. I mean, NVIDIA and MediaTek are getting on board with a PC project of themselves. And if you listen to Dell and some of the other PC makers, they're all offering at least a pretty optimistic viewpoint that we could have a upcycle in AI PCs. But keep in mind, on the memory side, there's going to be more memory content as you upgrade into AI PCs. So that in itself is a winner there in terms of memory content and memory production. So I tend to think, again, based on our context, on the PC side, it's a little slower than the recovery on the mobile side. But there are definitely some positive catalysts to keep an eye on as we progress through 2025.
Could I just switch topics here with you, Felix? As a tech expert, I want to get your view. There seems to be a perception that Apple is really struggling in AI. Now, I don't know if you formally cover Apple, but I'm sure you could give us some insight. Is that a fair assessment that Apple is just not really getting traction in AI?
Yeah, I mean, look, Apple Intelligence, it's been a core thesis on sentiment coming back to Apple. We were actually short Apple last year because we were concerned about the China market share issues and other factors, but mainly because of the China concerns. And that's still playing out. But Apple Intelligence was supposed to be like a savior in terms of them coming back and becoming more relevant in the AI discussion. And now because of these delays with Siri, maybe delayed by another year, that excitement is kind of waning. What I'm trying to figure out with our research team here is, does it really actually matter, at least for the rest of this year? Because they have a couple of new products coming. iPhone Air, in particular, catches my attention. Also, they're working on a foldable phone next year. And once you have a new product, what's Apple good at is innovation and marketing. So as long as they continue to churn out new exciting products that can cater to a wide range of audience, I think they can get that product cycle going again. But yeah, look, I think Apple Intelligence was a main thesis point for investors to get back into Apple. And now it looks like there is some hiccups, Felix, at least in the near term.
Felix, thank you very much indeed. Felix Wang has been our guest managing director at Hedgeye